everyone, I hope everyone's okay. I'm missing you all lots and lots. I thought we could read another chapter of our story today, so we're going to be reading chapter 8 of The Secret Dragon by Ed Clarke. So last time Mary thought maybe the dragon had died, but managed to save it, but she has to take it home. She didn't get to speak to Dr. Griff, so let's find out what she decides to do next. Chapter 8. Mary carefully replaced the lid on the ice cream container, sealing the dragon back inside, and slipped it into her bag. A clock on the wall nearby read 2:20. If she was going to get home without arousing her mum's suspicions, she would have to run for the train back. She took off down the hall, bag swinging, feet pounding. In the lift, she thought she could hear some tiny knocking sounds coming from the bag, but she didn't have time to investigate. She was out of the lift, past a well-dressed man who didn't look up from his laptop but droned, "Do come again," as Mary whisked out through the revolving door and onto the street. As she approached the station, though, she realised that something was poking her in the back. "Ow!" she cried as she put her return ticket through the barrier. A man wearing a fluorescent jacket gave her an odd sideways glance. "What's in the bag, miss?" he asked suspiciously. She grimaced back at him. Just my homework." "Your homework normally bounce around, does it?" asked the man, coming over to see what was what. Mary took the bag off her shoulders. Something was clearly thumping against the sides, making it jerk left and right. And though she knew that this something was a tiny dragon which must have escaped from its temporary home, she had no intention of letting the station official find out. "Oh, that," she said, "it's a science experiment. It's quite volatile." "I'm not sure if you should be taking it on a public transport if that's the case," he said, backing off a little. "It's perfectly safe," Mary replied, before adding in her most serious voice, "as long as it's in the right hands." The man didn't look happy, but before he could say anything else, an irritated old lady started rapping him with the handle of her walking stick. "Young man," she said, "this gobbly machine has swallowed my ticket." Mary took her chance and ran off down the corridor to her platform. It wasn't until she found the most tucked-away seat on the train that she dared to investigate further. Her bag was still jerking from side to side as she put it down on the window seat. "Calm down," she hissed, looking around to make sure no one else could hear. It was fortunate that there were only a couple of other people in the carriage, as the guiba wouldn't stop thwacking to and fro, and the bag was shuffling itself off the edge of the seat. Mary only just managed to catch it before it dropped to the floor. Okay, she growled. "What's the matter?" She knew she had to open the bag to find out what was going on. Very cautiously, she pulled down the two zips at the top until there was a gap just big enough to see inside. She peered in to see the dragon crouched at the bottom. It looked up at her, its big green eyes radiating innocence. "Will you make up your mind?" she said sternly. "One minute you're half dead and the next you're thrashing around like a sheepdog with an itch." The dragon swished its tail from side to side like a cat getting ready to pounce. "This is one science experiment that needs to go back in its box." She reached in and grabbed the container with one hand, swirling her other hand around to try and catch hold of the guiba. It wasn't as easy as she'd hoped. It ducked and weaved and slipped between her fingers, refusing to be captured. "That milk's given you a little too much oomph," said Mary, both hands now engaged in a vigorous dance with the reptile inside the backpack. "I'm just glad you can't use those wings properly yet." "Tickets from Cardiff." "Really?" muttered Mary, flustered. "You want the tickets now?" A ticket inspector was making his way down the aisle. Mary let go of the container and tried to pull her ticket out of her pocket with one hand while the other was wrestling with the dragon. "Here you are," she said, brandishing her ticket at the inspector with her best smile that she could muster. "You're a bit young to be out without your parents, aren't you?" came the reply. "Dad's dead," said Mary abruptly, employing her favourite tactic for shutting down a conversation. "Oh," said the inspector, "I'm sorry to hear that." As he turned to leave, Mary felt the dragon suddenly shoot up her arm and out of the bag. She spun round to see it perched on the luggage rack above her head. "Oh, so now you can fly," she said, quickly checking that the inspector hadn't seen. He was halfway down the carriage now, his back to Mary, speaking to a surly-looking teenage boy who was refusing to take off his headphones. "Come back down this minute," she hissed, reaching up to grab the dragon, but it seemed to have no desire to go back into the dark backpack. It sprang from the rack above her and opened its wings to sail onto the one onto the one on the opposite side of the carriage. She dived towards it, but it flew straight back the other way. As soon as Mary made a move, it immediately went in the opposite direction, seeming to enjoy this new game. Oh, come on! Mary desperately looked up and down the carriage to make sure that she was still unobserved. The inspector had moved further along. The surly boy was bashing at a game on his phone now. "Okay, you need to come to me now," she said, beckoning with one hand gently, trying to keep her temper. "I bet Mary Anning never had this trouble," she added under her breath. Mary moved very slowly towards the Guiba, and for once it didn't fly off. She was almost touching it when... "Do you want a coffee? Do you want a tea?" Mary froze, before spinning round and dropping back into her seat. A smiling, dreadlocked man pushing a drinks trolley had just appeared through the door from the next carriage. He smiled at Mary. "I got nice shortbread biscuits," he offered. Mary fixed a grin on her face and shook her head, praying that he would keep going. Unfortunately, he was the talkative type. "I got them little fizzy cans of cola." Behind the steward, Mary could see the dragon eyeing something on the trolley. Her eyes opened wide as she spotted a wicker basket full of milk pots next to the tea and coffee. "How much for some milk?" asked Mary, pointing at the basket. "Oh, those, you can just have those for free," said the man. "Just help yourself." Keeping one eye on the Guiba, Mary grabbed a huge handful and stuffed them into her backpack. "Thank you," she nodded to him. "Thirsty girl." He whistled to himself as he moved on. The dragon arrowed down from its perch, missing the man's departing dreadlocks by centimetres, and dived straight into Mary's backpack. As quickly as she could, she ripped the top off one of the pots and popped it into the ice cream tub. The dragon followed, and she whipped the lid back on. This time she kept the box on her lap, holding the top firmly down between her hands. "You," she announced, "are trouble." When Mary finally made it back to the farm, she raced straight up to her bedroom. She checked that the door was firmly closed, as well as the window, before letting the dragon out of its box. It flopped onto her desk, looking a little dazed. She switched on her desk lamp so that it could bask in the warmth. "I'm sorry about all the toing and froing. It's all part of a plan," she explained. "I promise." The Guiba looked at Mary out of the corner of one eye as she pulled out Dr. Griff's business card. "Dr. Griff will help us. I know he will." A knock on her bedroom door made her jump. "Mary, can I have a quick word?" It was Rian. "Don't come in," Mary blurted. In a flash, she had shoved the dragon back into the ice cream container, thrown open her wardrobe and stuffed it inside before slamming the doors firmly shut. She dashed over to her bedroom door and pulled it wide open. "What are you up to in there?" asked Rian. Nothing," said Mary, not at all convincingly. Rian raised an eyebrow, but clearly had other things on her mind. Mary almost didn't recognise her mum. Gone were the usual muddy jeans and baggy wool jumper, and in their place was a stylish black dress that Mary couldn't remember ever seeing before. Instead of being scrunched into a messy top knot, Rian's freshly dried hair was softly skimming her shoulders. In all the day's excitement, Mary had forgotten about her mum's date. She felt her face harden. "I thought you were just going to the lighthouse," she said. "Is it a bit much?" Rian asked anxiously. "He'll be here in a minute." As much as Mary hated the idea of her mum going out with a man who wasn't Mary's father, she could tell that she was nervous. "No," admitted Mary, reaching out to hold her mum's arm for a second. "You look nice." Her mum seemed to relax. "Thanks, love," she said. Mary managed a little smile in return. "Oh," said Rian, suddenly remembering something. "I meant to tell you before. Gareth, the vet, is a single parent too, and he didn't want to leave his son on his own tonight, so I told him to bring him over. You could keep each other company whilst we're out." Seriously? Mary couldn't believe her mother had thought this was a good idea. "I'm babysitting." "He's not that young," replied Rian. "Pretty much the same age as you. It might be fun." Mary doubted that intensely. Now she was going to have to spend an awkward evening with a boy she didn't know, whilst her mother went out with a man who wasn't her dad, all the while trying to hide the fact that there was a dragon in her wardrobe. "Okay," she said, not really meaning it. "Great," Rian smiled. "Thanks, love." Outside they could hear the sound of a car crunching up to the track to the farm. "That must be them," Rian said apprehensively. Try to be polite, Mary, and please try to talk about something other than fossils. Not everyone likes fossils, love." But before Mary could protest, she caught a glimpse through the window of the vehicle pulling up. Her stomach lurched. The car outside was a bright yellow estate, and getting out of the front passenger seat was Dylan from school. Oh dear, so Mary knows the boy that's coming over after all, but she still has to hide the dragon inside her wardrobe. We'll have to find out what happens next time. See you then. Bye-bye.